You know when you wake up an hour earlier than you need to, not because you're excited about work, but because those 60 minutes before anyone else arrives are the only time you can exist at the office without performing, without small talk, without pretending to be the social version of yourself that everyone expects? Welcome. You're not antisocial. You're not rude. You're not the problem. You're protecting something most people don't even realize they're losing. And the fact that you have to arrive early just to get it says everything about what's broken in modern work culture. Quick note before we dive in. This isn't about hating your coworkers or being superior to people who enjoy workplace socializing. This is about what happens when your brain needs solitude to function, and the modern office is designed to make solitude nearly impossible. Also, this video is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice. If you're struggling with these issues, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional. Here's what nobody tells you about people who arrive early to avoid coworkers. They're not being difficult. They're not being standoffish. They're not failing at some essential workplace skill called being a team player. They're experiencing something that happens when your nervous system needs quiet to regulate, and the office environment treats that need as a personality flaw. Think about the last time you had to be on socially for an entire day. That exhaustion you felt afterward. That need to just sit in silence and not talk to anyone. For some people, that's what every single workday feels like. Except they're also supposed to be doing complex cognitive work while maintaining this constant performance of friendliness and availability. Here's the thing nobody tells you about people who arrive early to avoid coworkers. Social interaction isn't just a preference or a personality trait. It's a cognitive load. And for some brains, that load is significantly higher than for others. Think about a software developer who arrives at 7 a.m. to get 2 hours of quiet before the office fills up. It's not that they hate people. It's that small talk about weekend plans requires cognitive resources they need for debugging complex code. And their brain has learned that those morning hours of solitude are the difference between a productive day and a day spent feeling cognitively drained. The research on this is pretty clear. Introverts and highly sensitive people process social stimulation differently at a neurological level. What feels energizing to an extrovert can feel depleting to someone whose nervous system is wired to need more recovery time between social interactions. And here's what makes this particularly relevant to the workplace. This isn't about being shy or anxious. It's about how your brain allocates energy. And when you're using mental resources to navigate social performance, you have less available for actual work. But then there's something else happening beneath the surface. These people aren't just avoiding casual conversation. They're protecting their ability to think deeply, to focus without interruption, to exist in their own mental space without having to constantly monitor and adjust their social presentation. The early morning quiet isn't laziness or antisocial behavior. It's a deliberate strategy to preserve cognitive capacity for what actually matters. But then there's something else that makes this even more exhausting. Something that people who naturally enjoy workplace socializing might not fully understand. When you're someone who needs to arrive early to avoid coworkers, you're not just dealing with the social interaction itself. You're dealing with the constant performance of being the right kind of colleague, the friendly version, the approachable version, the version that asks how your weekend was and remembers to laugh at jokes and knows when to contribute to group conversations. This performance has a name in psychology. It's called code switching, and it's exhausting. You're essentially running two operating systems simultaneously, the one doing your actual work and the one monitoring and adjusting your social presentation to meet workplace expectations. And here's what makes this particularly draining. Unlike genuine interaction with close friends, where you can just be yourself, workplace socializing often requires this careful calibration of professionalism and friendliness, this constant awareness of how you're being perceived. Think about how you feel at the end of a day full of meetings versus a day you spent mostly working alone. The cognitive fatigue isn't just from the work itself. It's from maintaining that professional persona, from being on, from managing how others perceive you while also trying to get things done. And for people who arrive early to avoid this, they've simply recognized that their energy is finite, and they'd rather spend it on work that matters than on performing accessibility. And here's the part that'll make everything click. This exhaustion isn't just mental, it's physical. And what it's doing to your body is something most people don't realize until it's too late. Now here's where it gets even more complex. When you're someone who needs early morning solitude, you're often not just managing social energy, you're managing sensory input. The modern open office is designed for constant stimulation. Conversations happening 3 desks away, phones ringing, people stopping by your desk to chat, the general hum of human activity. All of this requires your brain to filter and process, and that filtering takes energy. Your nervous system is constantly making decisions about what to pay attention to and what to ignore. And in a busy office environment, that decision-making never stops. The person laughing across the room, the email notification, the colleague who just sat down near you and might want to talk. Your brain is tracking all of it, even when you're trying to focus on a spreadsheet or write a report. And for people with higher sensory sensitivity, this isn't background noise they can easily tune out. It's active cognitive interference that drains them hour by hour, conversation by conversation, until they're running on empty by 2 p.m. The early morning quiet isn't just about avoiding conversation. It's about giving your nervous system a break from constant vigilance, from monitoring and filtering and responding to social and sensory input. Those 2 hours before everyone arrives are when your cortisol levels are lower, when your nervous system can operate in a calmer state, when you can actually think without your brain splitting its attention between work and social awareness. And here's what nobody talks about. What makes this particularly insidious? This need for sensory calm isn't weakness or oversensitivity. It's a different nervous system calibration. Some people's brains need more downtime between stimulation to process and reset. And the modern workplace is designed as if everyone's nervous system works the same way. And here's what makes this particularly revealing about modern work culture. And honestly, what should make you angry. The fact that you have to arrive an hour early just to get some quiet says more about the system than it does about you. Open office design was never about what helps people do their best work. It was about fitting more workers into less space and saving money on real estate while calling it collaboration. The underlying assumption is that constant availability and interaction make better employees. That the ideal worker is someone who can seamlessly switch between deep focus and casual conversation, who can maintain productivity while also being perpetually accessible for questions and small talk. But that assumption is based on one nervous system type, and everyone else is expected to just adapt, to just be more flexible, to just learn to work in conditions that fundamentally conflict with how their brain functions best. So, what can you actually do when you're trapped in this pattern? Here's something practical. Use headphones as a boundary signal, even if you're not listening to anything. It's a visual cue that you're focused and not available for casual conversation. And it gives you permission to protect your attention without having to verbally decline every interaction. It's not rude. It's a tool for managing your cognitive resources in an environment that otherwise treats them as endlessly available. And here's another thing. If you can, try to negotiate arrival flexibility with your manager. Frame it around productivity, not preference. I'm most productive in the early morning quiet lands differently than I don't like people. Most managers care about output. And if you can demonstrate that your early arrival translates to better work, you're more likely to get support for maintaining that schedule. Here's what they don't tell you about people who arrive early to avoid coworkers. You're not antisocial. You're not difficult. You're not failing at some essential workplace skill called being a team player. Yeah. You're protecting your cognitive energy in an environment that treats it as infinitely renewable. You're creating boundaries in a culture that's decided boundaries are unprofessional. You're choosing morning solitude because it's the only time you're allowed to exist without performing. And the fact that you have to wake up an hour early just to get 30 minutes of peace says everything about what's broken in modern work culture. Every time you arrive before everyone else, every time you calculate the exact timing to minimize interaction, every time you feel guilty for needing something as basic as quiet space to think, you're not the problem. You never were. You're just trying to preserve your ability to do deep work in a system that's optimized for constant interaction. Trying to protect your mental energy in an environment designed to extract it continuously. And then wondering why you feel exhausted by a workplace that demands you be both deeply focused and perpetually available. So, the next time someone asks why you come in so early, or suggests you should be more social with the team, or implies that your need for morning quiet is somehow antisocial, remember, you're not being difficult. You're being honest about what your brain needs to function well. You're not antisocial. You're selectively social, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're not asking for special treatment. You're asking for the basic conditions required for your nervous system to do good work. Now tell me, do you arrive early to avoid coworkers? Or are you the coworker people are avoiding? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this video made you feel seen, hit subscribe. We're here every week breaking down the psychology of work that nobody talks about. Because understanding why you are the way you are, that's not just interesting, that's powerful.